For review today, we have an MRE. This one is menu number 12, cheese tortellini. And that may not seem like anything special, but there are a few reasons why this is actually a very special MRE for me to be reviewing. First off, there's a historical reason, and second off, there's a personal reason. Cheese tortellini is a long-standing MRE entree. It was introduced in 1996 and is still around to this day. But I'm actually expecting this one to be from 1995, the year before cheese tortellini was introduced. And that's because the first reason that this is special is because it's menu number 12 cheese tortellini, KH entree only, which stands for Kosher Halal. This is actually an example of the government's first attempt, I believe, to make a kosher halal MRE. Now these days, halal MREs aren't all that rare to find, and they also make kosher for Passover meals too. But this, I believe, is the first example of a kosher halal meal, and the interesting thing about that is it's only the entree. The rest of it is just regular MRE components. And while we haven't opened this yet, as I said, I am expecting this to be from 1995. And the interesting thing about that is that they didn't change to the tan bags until 1996. In 1995, you would normally still expect to see the old brown bags. So if this is indeed from 1995, this is the first example of the tan bags and the new font being used. Just to show a little specific information on this, there is no date code on here, of course, because it's before they started putting date codes on the outer bags. It has the older style font. It was in use from 1996 to 2007. And this is the repeating font as opposed to the one that's centered right in the middle. And this one was made by Right Away Foods, McAllen, Texas. So this is obviously from before the time that the three companies that now make MREs were making them. So I've actually done a review of this exact menu before. Oldsmokey sent one to me. So I have a review out there. Oldsmokey has a review and Sticky Fingers has a review, and I believe they're all this exact same menu. So my first thought when I got this was to use it as trade bait, try and get something else, or maybe give it to somebody else to review. But as I said, there is a personal reason that makes it special, and because of that, I'm going to go ahead and review it myself. We can kind of compare it to the other one that I did too and see if they're in the same kind of shape or if there's anything different inside. So I guess that's enough background information on this MRE, and now I can give the personal story. Recently we went out to the Buffalo, New York area for my wife's grandmother's funeral. And while we were there, we stayed with my wife's cousin. And I took advantage of the scenery to make an outdoor MRE review, and that's special in its own right. But because I was doing that, my wife's cousin told me that he didn't know much about MREs, but he had one in the trunk of his car. And that's actually very smart for somebody who's living out in the Buffalo area, where they have huge blizzards, a lot of snow, a lot of lake effect storms, where they can just get buried. And it's good to have something in your trunk to eat in case you get stranded somewhere. So I actually asked him if I could see the MRE that he had in his trunk. I was a little bit concerned that it may be old. He said he'd had it for years, so obviously it was old. But I had a feeling it was probably going to be from before the new bag designs in 2008. I was expecting to see this old font on here. So when he pulled it out, I wasn't too surprised to see the style. But when I looked a little closer, I was very surprised to see that he had one of these rare kosher halal MREs. Before Sticky Fingers and Oldsmokey did their reviews, I'd never even heard of these. So it just seemed kind of funny to have this just sitting in someone's trunk. Because of that, we obviously know this is going to be probably over 20 years old. And the fact that it was stored in a trunk, granted it was mostly only during cold weather, but I'm not expecting that it was stored particularly well. And you can see that a lot of the printing has faded or rubbed off. You can see it's even kind of hard to read the Right Away Foods. And the meal ready to eat and the MRE guy, they're all kind of in rough shape. But other than that, the bag seems to be in pretty good shape. It has a couple minor issues. This little area here looks like it was pulled at some point, and it almost looks like it went through, but I don't think it did. I think it's still completely intact there. And I thought I saw one other area. Looks like there may be, let's see the little discoloration or a little pinhole right here. And other than that, it looks okay. So we're mostly dealing with age issues and storage issues. And why don't we go ahead and open it up and see what is inside so we can actually date this and see what's in here and see what kind of shape everything's in. This does have the peelable seal. And here we go. I'll turn it back now. No smell coming off of it, just smells like plastic. That's a great sign. lot of times when these are stored like in a barn, they'll have an old musty kind of smell to it. I don't know, somehow it permeates through the bag. And yes, here we do have, for the date code on, so it's the applesauce, but we have, the first thing we see is 5236, meaning that this was packed on the 236th day of 1995. Pretty close to 1996. You could consider it a 1996, I suppose, depending on some of the other dates. It may not have come out until then. But here we go. Here's the cheese tortellini and tomato sauce, which has the kosher and halal designations here. And this has the date code on it even earlier, 5172, or the 172nd day of 1995. Some big bold printing here. So this was from the time before they put all the nutritional information on here, but you can see the ingredients, and you can see there's a lot of ingredients in this. And you can pause it here if you actually want to read all of those. And this obviously has seen some action. It's intact, but it looks like it's been, you know, tossed around in that trunk, or maybe had stuff put on top of it, or gone in and out of the trunk a number of times. So that's good to know. The side is applesauce, which has a much smaller ingredients list: apples, corn sweetener or sugar, water, ascorbic acid. And this is also going to be a good bellwether as far as how this was stored. When we see, I mean, even if it was stored perfectly, it's still probably going to be pretty brown, but let's see how dark that is. And as a good example of the 90s MREs, you're going to see a lot of different colors here. You can see these, a lot of these retort pouches are different colors. They have the brown and the gray. And let's see what these are when we open them up. But let's see, we have crackers. And this has a date code on it of 5263. It has a nice vacuum seal on it, so hopefully these will be fine. And we have peanut butter from Thermopack, Stone Mountain, Georgia. And this specifically says need package before opening. We're definitely going to do that. And the date code on this one, it's a little hard to read. Let's see, 5195. And here we have beverage-based powder. And this is in the generic pouch, which doesn't tell you what it is until you turn it over. This feels kind of grainy and clumpy inside. This is grape with a 5251 date code. And we also have an old school flameless ration heater with a lot of loose filings in here. I'm going to go ahead and try this one out because that's just really interesting to see if these old ones will actually produce any heat. This has a date code on it of 5130. Probably go ahead and add some salt to that. And it even has the little do not eat guy on there. The color in there. Oh, look at this, we have pound cake. I hope this is good. And let's see, what kind of pound cake is it? It is pineapple. For some reason I'm not surprised by that. I don't know if the last one had pineapple or not, but pineapple pound cake from the 219th day of 1995. We have our standard brown spoon and the accessory pack. This is accessory pack A, 5258 for the date code. And I see coffee in there. Let's see how this smells. A combination of the, mostly the gum, but some other stuff. I don't smell the Tabasco sauce, which is a good sign. So we have the toilet paper, the matches, the wet nap, sugar, salt, which we may use to activate the flameless ration heater, Taster's Choice coffee, which does not feel very good. It feels kind of solid in there. Non-dairy dry cream substitute, the gum, which looks fine, and the little bottle of Tabasco sauce. It has a date code of 5164, and that looks perfectly fine. The only problem I've had with these, even if it's like, this is totally liquid, which is great to see, but sometimes some of it does get stuck up in the neck of the bottle and clogs that up, but this looks really good. Okay, and here's everything that we got in this MRE. Nothing really too surprising, nothing that really stands out, except of course for the fact that it's a 1995 MRE that came in a tan bag rather than a brown bag, which you would have expected for the last year of the brown bags. And of course it also does have the Kosher Halal Entree. And so now let's go ahead and heat up the Entree and try this thing out. And we'll start off by seeing if we can get this flameless ration heater to work. We'll take a look inside the pouch here. And this is an 8-ounce entree, by the way, as they are nowadays. And here's yet another color. So in addition to the gray, there's also this green and the brown for the retort pouches. And it's kind of hard to see on here, but it does say cheese tortellini, kosher / halal. And the same date code is on the box. So it'll be interesting to see how this withstood the last 22 years or so. You never know. And as I said, this is the old style flameless ration heater with the cardboard sleeve inside instead of the more woven looking one. And you can see there's a lot of filings that have come out of there. So it's interesting to see if this actually works or not. And I'm going to attempt to do it without adding the salt first, so we can give it a fair shot. And interestingly enough, these old ones do take more water. I had only measured out about 1 ounce of water, and it only filled it up to about here. It's kind of interesting. You can see the filings rising in the water. Well, now comes the moment of truth. You get the cardboard down here, fold it over, and attempt to activate this thing. I'll give that a little bit of time. I'll come back in a minute or so. And yeah, this isn't really doing much. It's definitely soaked, and it's making a little bit of noise. I'm sure you can't hear it, but very, very small amount of noise, and no heat at all. So let me go ahead and add some salt and see if that does anything to it. I should have had a saltwater solution instead and just done that automatically, but I wanted to give it a chance on its own, just to prove itself. Let's give that a little bit more time. And wouldn't you know, I went ahead and put the entree into some hot water, and I was setting everything else up, and I came back to look at the heater, and look at it, it's steaming away. It's got all kinds of steam coming out of there. And it's puffed up really nicely. So while I'm not going to use it, actually, you know what? Maybe I will go ahead and use it. Might as well, since it's working. If I can get this in while it's fully activated. It's going to be hot. I am very impressed with that. Did not expect that at all. Go ahead and put that back in the box. The smell is really nasty. They've improved not only how well these work, but also the smell. This it almost smells like old garbage, as opposed to just that sort of chemical smell you get now. But we'll go ahead and place the whole thing at an angle on a rock or something, and give that some time to heat up. And if I can ignore that smell, we'll go ahead and check everything else out. Let's see how these crackers are doing after 22 years. Well, let's check for a hiss. It's definitely well vacuum sealed. There's a nice one. Yeah, those smell good. I was kind of hoping these might be the ones that have the salt on them, but no, they're just pretty smooth, pretty plain crackers. It's an interesting smell that comes off of them. It's not exactly, I don't know. They're fine though. They definitely smell like crackers. So I took the liberty of kneading the peanut butter beforehand, and it's very, very soft. Sometimes you get these and they're really hard. Sometimes you get them and they're really soft. And this is one of those really soft ones. I'm going to try to get this just a corner opened, and let's see how this is. And that is looking perfect. No complaints about that. That flameless ration heater is really smelly. I probably should have that outside. It's kind of making me lose my appetite a bit. It's almost like a chemical version of a skunk smell, if that makes any sense. I'm sure it doesn't, but it's not pleasant at all. It smells like a wet dog and a skunk and some chemicals mixed in. Anyway, on that note, let's check out our pineapple pound cake. This I'm hoping will be good because pound cake's one of my favorite MRE items. It crumpled up a little bit in there. But it looks good. And it smells fine. It's I guess there's a little bit of a pineapple smell coming off there. It's a little bit oily. It's not, oh, I thought it had no oxygen absorber, but it was just hiding on the back. But looking forward to trying that. And then we have our applesauce. So far we've been doing pretty good with this stuff. It should be interesting to see how the applesauce is. If I can get it open. I can't get it open. Yeah, overall for being 22 years old, I'd say that doesn't look too bad. And there's nothing particularly offensive about the smell, so it looks like we're going to be able to try that out. And that leaves us with a couple of beverages. We have our grape beverage base powder. I'm looking forward to seeing the old school purple color instead of that blue color they use nowadays. So this is going to take 12 ounces of water. And let's see how this powder is doing in here. I don't know if you can see that, but there is some clumping. It's like dark colored clumping. But you're definitely getting that grape smell coming off of it. I'm just guessing maybe a little bit of moisture in there. I don't think there's anything to worry about with that. Here's one of the clumps right here. Oh, let's see what we got. And that's what I expect from a grape beverage base powder. Put some of that in a glass. Alright, that actually turned out pretty well. I don't know exactly what to expect from this Taster's Choice coffee, but we'll go ahead and try it with the creamer and sugar. Smells okay. Oh boy. Oh, it's looks like a tar. It's got these bits that are together, but I don't see any dry mold in there or anything, so we'll go ahead and try it. Worst comes to worst, I won't drink it. Creamer is in perfect shape. Nice powder there. And the sugar. Hopefully those little bits will break up. Oh, maybe not. I'll give it some time. That's pretty nasty. Okay, now let's see how the cheese tortellini came out. I can feel some heat in the box. Actually, I can feel some heat on the top, which is a very good sign, considering the heater is on the bottom. And that thing ended up working really well. I'm very impressed with that. That thing's still letting off a lot of heat. That's very impressive. Also left a lot of residue on here. It's kind of nasty. I'll go ahead and wipe that down. Yeah, adding some salt to the flameless ration heater really does do magic sometimes. And tortellini smells fine. You're basically just smelling that tomato sauce, the kind of a acidic smell coming off of it. As one would expect. And there it is, and it pretty much looks like your standard cheese tortellini and tomato sauce. Considering how simple it is, tortellini is a pasta, and some cheese inside of it, and then tomato sauce, it is kind of surprising just how long that ingredient list is. But even though it's kosher and halal, we are still dealing with an MRE after all. Let's go ahead and try this out while it's still warm. When this first came out, it was actually steaming, which I was a little surprised, and like I said, very impressed with that flameless ration heater. But here is one of the tortellini. Looks pretty standard. Let's go ahead and try it out and see how it tastes. It tastes perfectly fine. Tastes edible. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So if I can show you the inside of one of these so you can see the cheese. You can't really see too much there, but it's like this ground up little filling. It tastes good though. There may be a little bit of packaging taste in there, or it may just be sort of a chemical flavor from this early version of this entree. They probably have improved it over the years. And all that stuff in the ingredients, there may be something that makes it taste a little bit weird too. I know a lot of these are like vitamins and things, but autolyzed yeast extract, hydrolyzed corn gluten, ferrous sulfate. There's just a few things that kind of sound a little bit not like something you make if you're making your own cheese tortellini for dinner. But as I said, the flavor seems to be fine. The tomato sauce seems to have held up just perfectly. There's nothing off about it. And of course it's nice that it's warm. I don't have any problems with that. I think this would be fine if it was cold too, but it's always nice to be able to heat one of these things up whenever possible. Yep, for something that's 22 years old, the only thing I can really complain about is maybe a little bit of softness in the pasta. And it's not even that bad. And considering it's been sitting in its retort pouch for the past 22 years, it's not really bad at all. Before we put this down, I guess we should probably try the applesauce. As you can see, a little on the dark side. But certainly nothing as bad as the dark side of the force, just a little bit dark in color. Yeah, it tastes like applesauce, but it's definitely a little bit off. Maybe starting to ferment just a little bit. I wouldn't eat this whole thing, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Just not as pleasant as what you would expect from applesauce. The entree seems to be spot on. The side is just a little bit off. And actually, when we wash that down with a little bit of the grape beverage, which seems to taste just fine despite that clumping of the powder. Tastes like your standard kid's Kool-Aid drink. Very sweet, but a nice alternative to plain water. And why don't we try the cracker here? This little piece just broke off. I'll try that. Cracker seems just fine. It's very plain, very bland. It's not very salty. Even though it's not a saltine, I assume that there is some salt in the mixture. But that's very, as I said, very plain. Which is obviously why you get a spread to put on it. I'm sure it's going to be a lot better with the peanut butter, and it's also probably going to be good crumpled up into the tortellini. Let's try it with the peanut butter. Peanut butter is absolutely perfect. Nothing wrong with that at all, which isn't a big surprise. I think the cracker is too. It does taste a little bit different, but I think it's just that they maybe changed up the recipe a little bit. Because I remember having MREs back in the early 80s, and this actually kind of takes me right back to that. Eating with crackers. I like them, the ones from the 80s were like a little bit thicker, a little bit heartier, and of course a lot of them had salt on them. But this does still have that same taste to it. Yeah, it's very good. It does make you a little bit thirsty though, of course. The dryness of the crackers and the thickness of the peanut butter. So I guess we'll at least try out this coffee. And between the coffee and the sugar and the creamer, if there wasn't anything wrong with the coffee, it seems to have been covered up and tastes just fine. Just tastes like instant coffee. Nothing wrong with that. And that leaves us with the thing I've been looking forward to, the pineapple pound cake. I don't think there's any pound cakes that I don't like in MREs, but pineapple is definitely a good one. And that is really good. It's, I wouldn't exactly say moist, but it still has some sponginess to it. There's nothing tastes off about it at all. A little bit of, seems to be a little bit of sugar on the top. It has a little bit of a crunch. But otherwise it tastes perfectly like a pound cake that you'd find in an MRE today. So I'll say that for something that's 22 years old and has spent a good part of that last 22 years in a car trunk, this thing has survived amazingly. This is really good. I'm going to definitely eat all of this pound cake. And I think the last thing we'll do is we'll just add some of this cracker into the tortellini. I'm going to knock it up just a bit. And I would add the Tabasco too, but this one's actually in such nice shape I think I'm going to hold on to this one. And as expected, that adds a whole new dimension to it. Kind of makes up for the sort of softness of the pasta, adding that little crunch to it. And obviously if you need it, the hot sauce will be fine in there. And you do have the salt too, but I think that was fine on its own. It's not terribly bland. And overall, everything in this was excellent. It survived really well. And so that was a look at a 1995 meal ready to eat, menu number 12, with the Kosher Halal cheese tortellini entree. Thank you for watching.